Yeah. What's up, everybody? It's Demetrice and Anika here with Clair Em Motivators, and we are back with your weekly dose of motivation, inspiration, and encouragement. We are going to continue the conversation that we started last week. Last week, we started talking about boundaries, and this week, we're going to talk about boundaries in romantic relationships. But before we do that, we have to do our weekly What Would Motivate You Most? And I'm going to pick a question. What would motivate you most? Working in a group to solve the biggest problems or working alone? So, do you prefer to work in a group or do you prefer to work alone?
Whew, that's a hard question, okay? Because
Who in the group?
working in a
First of
group,
all, let's start there.
working in a group means you can share the work. I'm gonna say working in a group. I like to work by myself because I feel I get more done. But if I'm gonna be solving the biggest problem, I would more heads are better than one. So I'm gonna work with some other people.
That is very admirable because I'm going to choose alone. No, I understand what you're saying, that if it's the biggest problem, which honestly, I'm trying to figure out, like, what is that? Okay, let me tell you what the biggest problem is right now. It is 13 degrees in Texas,
And it feels like -4. Let's
and
say
it feels like -4. And this winter weather is violating all of my boundaries.
absolutely, absolutely. We
So
don't
if
do
that's the
this.
biggest problem, I need everybody to come together to figure out how we're going to fix this because it's cold
And
and
then
my heater is
imagine
off
you
at the
fix this
moment.
and see you gotta fix that by yourself. That's a big
No,
problem.
okay, you're
You
right. Group,
need heads to come in and help you because it's too cold to do this by yourself.
group. I realized yesterday I was out trying to do something very simple and I kept calling Chris. And I was like, you got to do better. Like, you got to be
He's
able to
probably
figure
thinking,
this
"Oh,
out.
I should have just went with you."
But it was there because he's like, oh, y'all always talk about, oh, we independent.
Yeah, you calling me every 2 minutes.
Right, trying to figure this out.
That's
So,
funny.
speaking of Chris, we wanted to talk about boundaries in relationships. Out of all the people that I've coached, I would definitely say that this is the area that is the most ripe for conflict when people are trying to impose boundaries. And we talked about last week what those are. If you haven't watched our video from last week, start there. But basically, we talked about boundaries being those things that you set in place for your own mental health. Basically, letting people know what you're okay with, what you're not okay with, and designing your life in a way that makes you happy, where you're able to get what you want out of your relationships and also give to your relationships in a way that fulfills you. So, speaking of relationships, I think that the first thing that you have to do, which seems like it would go without saying, but I think it's important, is you have to be in a relationship with the right person, right? Like if you try to impose boundaries and the person that you're in a relationship with is not a good partner, it's not going to work
Yeah,
because you're going to say you don't like something or that you like something and it's going to cause an issue. And so for me, I think step 1 is making sure you choose a good partner. But what do you think about that?
oh, absolutely. Because we sit here saying set boundaries, but the person that you with is the wrong person for you. I don't care how much compromise. I don't care what it is that you say, what it is that
Right.
you do. You're never going to reach the solution that you're hopefully trying to reach because I'm with the wrong person to begin with. So absolutely, it's not going to. That's the first step. So hopefully that we everybody
Right.
listening
Hopefully you already figured,
done
you
that.
already know, like I'm in a healthy relationship. So now next step 2,
Yeah,
what do I do?
yeah,
I think it's important too that you have to have the freedom, which if you're in a healthy relationship, you should, to be your authentic self. And I
yeah,
think a lot of times when you first start dating somebody, you can kind of go along with the flow and not do things that you like to do, or maybe keep certain things away from them. Like if y'all don't live together, y'all not married, you can kind of put your best face forward. But then the longer you're with somebody, or especially when y'all get married, you can't do that anymore. And so
yeah,
things that were probably okay when you were dating, when you're in a committed relationship with somebody, all of a sudden, you don't like smacking, but you never said anything the entire time. And now the way he eats is just driving you crazy. It's like, I think that you have to, be yourself, authentic self upfront and know, what you like and what you don't like. Um, because like I said, people early in relationships will look past some stuff that really bothers them. But then, the more time passes, the more that resentment grows. Where you're like, okay, I can't deal with this anymore.
You know what you're talking about makes me. I'm over here smirking because I got a thought in my head of on the movies when the women and the men first get together and she wakes up before he gets up and goes and brush her teeth and
Yes.
like toss
Put
her hair.
makeup
So
on.
it looks
Yes.
real good. And every morning she wakes up and just looks beautiful. And the first time he wake up next to her and she got the head wrap on and the glasses on and her teeth ain't
Big
brushed.
glasses. It's like,
Okay, I
where are
digress.
you?
I'm sorry.
So I think that it's important to be authentic early on and to start practicing speaking up for yourself early on in the relationship. But another thing that's important is the longer your relationship is, the more people change, right? Like
Oh yeah.
maybe you changed your style after you had kids. You used to wear 6-inch heels. Now you're chasing toddlers around. You can't do that anymore, or don't do it as much. And so even with that, I think you be your authentic self up front, allow them to be their authentic self up front, but also understand that the longer you're with somebody, the more people change and grow, the more
Oh
people
yeah.
go through seasons, and you have to, be willing to go along the ride. But when you really genuinely are with the right person and you like them, those changes, it may be a little hiccup here and there,
Yeah, but
but
it's
it
like,
doesn't destroy your
yeah,
relationship.
yeah, it's like, and then the younger you are when you get together too, because they say we're
Yes,
high school sweethearts. Well, then by the time we hit 40, we have hopefully matured or we have changed. And so if you're not with the right person, those hills and valleys that you're going to be going through are going to be mountains in your relationship if you can't grow together. So the younger you are, I would imagine you're going to
the
experience
harder.
it more too.
Yeah, and two, I think the younger you are, the less you know about yourself, right?
Yeah,
Like if you're in high school, your early 20s. Chris and I got together in our early 20s. There's so much that I've learned about myself in my life since then that there was no way for me to show, because I didn't know.
yeah,
But when you have that strong foundation and you actually are with the right person and you like the person that you're with and you learn to love yourself, then you guys, like you said, you hit the hills and the valleys, but there's a solid foundation there to help you to go along.
yeah.
One
One
thing
thing
that go
that
ahead.
you just said that just made me think is that in this context, when you're talking about setting boundaries, you're not changing a person into somebody else. So if that's what you're doing, you're not,
That's
that's
not
the
a
first
boundary.
step. I'm not right. I'm not quite where I need to be setting boundaries, because boundaries are really just trying to show somebody this is how I would like to be loved or treated. How would you like to be loved and treated? This is a hard stop for me. Pineapples, don't want to do that. But
Right.
oh yes, that's okay. So if you're thinking about boundaries and thinking, okay, well, I'm gonna do this and change him or change her, then we ain't talking about the same thing. So it
Right.
really is just kind of setting forth your standards for how you want to be treated.
Right. And I think too, when people talk about setting boundaries, it's like, oh, I like this or I don't like this. That requires the security of knowing that the other person is actually going to listen to you.
Yeah.
Right. And that goes back to being with the right person. But I think that for you to even start with, okay, I'm setting boundaries, one, like you said, you're focusing on yourself. Like, this is something that I need in order to be happy. But my focus is not to impose rules to change you. My
Yeah.
focus is not to say, well, you need to do this, this, and this, because in your mind, your ex did those things, or your mom used to do those things for you. It's not that. It's like you said, it's teaching someone how to love you and having the security of knowing that that person is going to receive the things that you want with an open heart and at least listen. You don't get everything that you want in relationships. You don't. I mean, there's some stuff that you have to compromise. And so you just have to figure out where your deal breakers are. Like, this is something that I cannot compromise on. I have to have this. And then there's some stuff where you have to say, okay, it's not just me in this relationship. There's two of us. So we have to figure out a way that this is going to work for both of us. But when I say security, I think that you have to, one, be able to make decisions, and then also have the ability to ask for what you need, know that that person is going to hear you and compromise, that you have space in your relationship to say no to things that you don't like. And I think when we're talking about boundaries in relationships, it's emotional boundaries and physical boundaries, that y'all have, communication enough for you to be able to say, whether it's coming to emotional things, physical things, like, I'm not okay with that. I don't like that. And you know that the person's actually going to respect you and listen to you. Um, and then I think a big one for me is not criticizing people for what their needs are, right? Like, for me, for example, you're my sister. You've known me my whole life. I have always had a need to get away, like to have alone time and to get away. I have been like that since I was a little kid. There were moments in the house where I would just disappear And everybody's like, what is wrong? Where are you going? What is wrong with you? Why are you sitting under the table? Or why are you going in the closet? And for me, I never understood it. I understand it now, but it was I need to get away. Well, in my relationship with my husband, I'm still the same way. There were, when we first got together, times when I would disappear. And Chris would have to be, and I mean in the house, not disappear like he hasn't heard from me all day. I literally mean we're in the same house. He's looking for me in the living room where I normally am, and I'm not there because I'm like in the media room with the lights off. And he's like, what are you doing in here? And so we had to have a conversation for him to be like, hey, I panic when I don't see you sitting where you're normally sitting at this time. So I understand you need a long time, but can you tell me, hey, I need a minute. I'm going to go in the media room for a second. And also, give me the security of knowing that I didn't do anything. Because a lot of times he would feel like, oh, I thought you were mad at me. And I'm like, no, I wasn't mad at you. I just had a long day and I wanted to just sit and just be still for a second. Um, but that for us was something that we had to speak up about. And I knew that he wasn't going to criticize me, that he wasn't going to make fun of me and be like, that's weird. Like, why do you go sit in the dark? Like, no, I love you. I'm asking for things from you. I'm asking for you to tell me where you are and to let me know that, I didn't do anything wrong, but I'm not going to judge you or make fun of you or laugh at you or ask you why you do that, because I just accept that that's a part of you and I love you.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things too with the video from last week talking about parents, one big difference when you set boundaries with your parents and your in-laws is that oftentimes with parents and in-laws, it's a statement and a period. It's hey, I don't want you to do this. But with a partner, realize it's oftentimes a comma, because there is going to be some compromise and some give and take. So that's one big thing. And then like what you were sharing, setting the boundaries. Y'all have heard me talk all the time about just, neat. And so I am, unfortunately, the neatest one in my house. The other three people, oh, goodness. But one of the things is a space where I am working in. So like in the office where I'm working or wherever my space is, I cannot stand clutter. And so, I've had to kind of back where is this, this is your closet. So if his closet looks a mess, that's his closet. It can look however he wants it to. Right. But if you're coming over to the office, somewhere where we all share space, then everybody knows, Gavino and the kids, is you need to pick up your stuff out of that space because this is a shared space and it needs not to be stuff everywhere. And I'm like I said, that may not be important to anybody else, but for everybody who knows me, knows that, if I'm going to sit down and concentrate, I can't have shoes on top of my desk and can't find my pencil because it's underneath the blanket. So, and that's one thing that, we'll get to that talking with kids too, but even them have to get in on that to say, okay, hey, your room, it needs to be clean. Let's talk about Gavino because the kids do stuff. But with Gavino, like I say, whatever your space is, you want to have stuff everywhere. As long as it's in your space that you want to live like a little pig, then it's so that's an example for us.
Right. Well, what you couldn't do is tell him to keep his stuff as neat as you do. Because you're going to bang your head against the wall. If y'all been together, I don't know how long, 16 years or longer than that?
Let me see. Was Giovanni 14, 15, 16, 17? It'll be 17 years
17 years, and he is who he is. Now, I think he makes accommodations for you, right? Like, I'm going to pick up a little more because I know that she likes things to be very neat, but he's never going to be as neat as you. And so a lot of times people want to impose boundaries to say, I need you to keep your closet tidy. Yeah, and like the other person in that relationship is like, I love you and I am killing myself literally trying to learn how to organize like you, but that's just not me. It's stressing me out trying to meet
it doesn't, I was gonna say it doesn't bother him. If I can't find my pencil because it's underneath the shoe, that doesn't bother me as much.
You just made me think about Ross. That's why I don't like Ross.
And then you see now why I don't like Ross. I know
I love Ross. You cannot disrespect Ross.
Let me tell y'all, I love Ross for all of y'all, but I cannot do Ross because I cannot be looking for the shoe in the bathroom section. Like I can't, it drives me crazy. So like, I like the stores to be compartmentalized. So Michi's laughing because I tell her all the time and she always raves about Ross. And I'm like, I can't go, I'm sorry.
Well, it's funny because I'll get her stuff from there and take the tags off. She's like, oh, this is cute. Where'd you get this from? Ross. But the point was like, if you try to, for 17 years, make him neater, you are going to be very unhappy. And so is he. And so I think that's a good point. With other people, your boundaries can have a period. for your partner, it's going to have a question mark, a comma, a semicolon. Like it's not a, I'm putting my foot down on this. It's a, hey, this is what I need. Let's discuss it. And then too, like I said, just the safety of knowing that you're not going to judge him and call him names and criticize him because he's not as neat as you. You just recognize that y'all are different people. And, you know, maybe if you have enough money, hire somebody to help him with his stuff. One thing that Chris does for me, I'm one of those people that I'm going to wash clothes, but we have 2 to 4 business days before I'm going to fold them.
Yeah.
They're clean and they're off to the side, but they are not folded right away. Not mine. The kids are, but at the end of the night, I'm like, I don't feel like dealing with this. So sometimes if it bothers him, he'll fold my clothes and he'll put them away because he's like, okay, the whole room is clean, but then your clothes are not folded. He doesn't say anything to me. He folds them and puts them away. He puts them in the wrong drawers, but I don't complain because he
folded them.
Right. He folded them and he put them away. And I know that that's something that's important to him. I think one thing that's very important is I don't think that you can set boundaries to help make them responsible for your own internal issues. So for example, if you are dealing with insecurity issues that came from maybe a previous relationship, you cannot set boundaries in your new relationship to make your partner responsible for your insecurities. Example, you got cheated on in a past relationship. And so you tell your new partner, well, a boundary for me is you can't hang out after work if there's going to be female coworkers present. Well, that's not fair to him. He didn't cheat on you, right? He didn't. And so I think a lot of times in relationships, people will bring their own issues. Like you said, you're trying to fix him with your boundaries or trying to make yourself comfortable by telling the other person what they can and can't do. But what you're really doing is making him responsible for issues that you need to resolve on your own. It's not his responsibility to make you, it's his responsibility to make you secure like in a normal relationship. You want to know that the person's going to be faithful to you. But if this person has to go above and beyond, you want him to delete his social media accounts. You want him to stop being friends with all the female friends that he's had before you, that he has told you, his mama has told you nothing ever happened between them. Or at least, you know, y'all talk about it if y'all have different expectations about friends of the opposite sex, but you're, you know, going above, you gotta have his password to his phone to check it every 15 minutes because you are imposing your own issues on him. Or people that have a fear of abandonment is a big one. People that think that someone's going to leave them. And so they do all of these things and put all of these rules in their current relationship because of something that they dealt with, you know, maybe in childhood or from a previous relationship. That's not fair. And you're going to push a lot of people away or be unhappy in your relationship when your boundaries aren't respected because or the other person, like we said with the parents, they're going to tell you, okay, yeah, I'll do that. And then they're going to lie to you and go to that event with female coworkers present because they don't, you know, because they want to be able to do that. Right. They want to be able to do it, but they know it's going to make you upset. And so in between like, well, I'm just going to go, but I'm not going to tell her. And then now that's going to just reinforce the issues that you're already having. And so you have to work out. And a tip that I always give people is when you think of your boundaries and the things that you have to have or that you want, write them down and ask yourself why. And so if you say, well, I don't want someone hanging out with women, right? Like I don't want my husband to ever go to lunch alone with the female coworker. Ask yourself why. Go through the list. And if at the end of that, you feel like, okay, this is healthy. This is not me bringing forth some mess from my past. This is just something that I need. Then have a conversation with him about it. But I think a lot of times, like I said, people's boundaries are trying to overcompensate for their own internal issues.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. And then that's one, because we always say insight is one of the hardest things to come by. And that's one of those ones that if every relationship you go through, I impose that boundary on everybody whom I'm dating, and it always falls apart. It's one of those moments where you got to kind of step back and ask myself, okay, well, my last girlfriend, boyfriend, I did that too, and it blew up in my face. So it's a pattern. And in those types of boundaries that you're setting, those insecurities are going to follow you from relationship to relationship to relationship, and you're going to keep
you'll see the pattern.
Same thing. So at some point, if that's what you're hearing and a light bulb clicks and it's like, well, wait a minute, then step back, like you said, and reflect. Okay, well, what is it and why is this boundary so important to me and is leading to these failed relationships? Well, then I maybe need to kind of reconvene and work out with myself first so that I can move forward, because the whole point is that this is in a healthy relationship, like you said, and we are imposing this because I'm teaching you how to love me, but I'm not transforming you or
Right.
trying to, like you said,
Right.
you were carrying I'm carrying my baggage and I want you to pick it up.
Exactly. That's a very important distinction, that the boundaries that are healthy is coming from a place of me teaching you how to love me just because of who I am as a person. It's a whole different thing when it's I'm bringing my bags into this relationship
Yeah.
and I want you to hold my bags with me. Like that, you have to unpack your bags. And as a couple, you don't always have everything figured out when you get with somebody and you fall in love. And sometimes it's that relationship that's a mirror for you that shows you the things that you need to work on, because your partner is a person who gets to see the behind the scenes. You can go to work and put on a good face. You're not with your friends all the time. You're not with your parents all the time, but your partner, especially when we start talking about long-term relationships and marriage, that person sees you, all flaws and all. They see every part of you. And these can be the hardest ones to try to hide from. And so sometimes they are that mirror for you. And I think, like you said, the greatest sign sometimes that you're dealing with some stuff is failed relationships, or y'all keep hitting your head in the same place in your relationship. Your current person is telling you, you're not affectionate, and your last boyfriend told you that, and your mom is like that. Well, then you're gonna have to, like you said, sit down with those bags and start to unpack them, versus just saying, well, I'm gonna set a boundary. This is what it is, period. It's like,
Yeah,
no,
if
you're,
you want to be with me, this is what you got to do.
right. um I think another one that I've dealt with is people who have the fear of abandonment, so they don't speak up at all. So you have, people who are dealing with their own baggage, and so they overly impose boundaries to make themselves feel better. You have people that go the opposite way too, that don't impose any boundaries because of the fear that if they say something, this person is going to leave them. Or you think about people that are just so eager to be in a relationship, they just want a man, for example, and so they just accept anything and they don't speak up, and this person is continually doing things that hurt them. That lack of boundaries can reveal some stuff going on internally with you as well, because if
Yep.
you're in a healthy place and you're in a healthy relationship, you can speak up and say, hey, this is not working for me, without the fear of thinking, because I told him I don't like X, Y, and Z, he's going to leave me.
Yeah.
Like that is, it's scary, but you have to be able to, like we said in the beginning, have the security of knowing that my needs matter. What I want matters, and I should be able to speak up about them. Like you said, you don't always get what you want. It's not the boundary with the period, but at the very least, I feel safe and secure enough to know that I can say it.
Yes, and we can go from there. But no,
Right.
that's a very good point. With the and this is always speaks to me because quiet is not peace. So not speaking
Right.
up doesn't mean that I'm peaceful. Not
Nope.
speaking up doesn't mean, it just it's not peace. Quiet is not peace.
Right.
And so if I'm keeping quiet and this is, and I'm left with these thoughts when they're not in the room or they're not around, I still have to deal with it. That's one thing I've
Right.
learned too, is being quiet. It doesn't do anything besides keep the conflict with you, and not necessarily conflict. It just keeps it with you,
Right.
and the other person is sleeping over here real good, but you were sitting up
And you're
at
upset.
night just thinking,
Right.
oh, I cannot stand when he does this. And then it's not fair to this person over here because they don't even know that you don't even like it because I don't say
Right.
anything. I'm just like, okay, yeah, I don't want to nag. I don't want him to seem like I'm
Right.
nagging him or coming down on him. So I'm just not gonna say anything. But that's not peaceful. It is definitely not peaceful.
There's a quote that says that keeping the peace creates a war within yourself.
Yeah.
So as a couple, y'all are peaceful, air quotes, but inside, like you said, you're stewing over this. I talked to a couple one time who said they were on vacation, and he, because they were on vacation, he was like, I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to say anything. And then finally he couldn't deal with it anymore. So he said he brought it up, and she was like, why are you bringing this up? We're having a good time. And he said, no, you're having a good time.
Yeah.
I'm not. And we need to address this. We need to talk about this. They talked about it, worked through it, and then they went on and
Yeah,
had
to
a good
have
time.
a good
Right.
time.
But like you're out on the beach with her, she's living her best life, and you're upset and not saying anything, and you're gonna go the whole week like that. And
Yeah.
that's when the resentment starts to build up. That's when it snowballs, and it started out this small and now it's this big because you never said anything. And so that's when you kind of start asking yourself why too. Like, why don't I feel comfortable saying something to him or to her? Why am I not able to express this? What happens when I express myself? Like you said, a lot of people have that fear of, well, I don't want to be a nag, right? Especially as a woman, you're like, nobody wants to be the nagging wife. And so you're like, well, I'm just not going to say anything. But there's a difference between nagging and speaking up for your needs. And if somebody makes you feel like you're nagging, it's like, well, I keep saying it because you're not listening. So, you know, I may be saying it a lot, but if you would listen to me, I would stop saying it.
Yeah.
And I think you just kind of have to lose the pressure that label puts on you not to say anything. Because you don't, nobody wants to be called a nag. Nobody wants to be told, oh, all you want to do is argue, because it makes you feel like, okay, well, I'm just not going to say anything. But then you're going to be unhappy. Right. So I'm peace over everything. I'm choosing peace, my peace over everything. And like you said, peace doesn't mean we don't talk about anything, we don't address it, and we all just act like everything's okay. Peace means we worked through this, that, even when it got tough and we got tired of talking about it, we worked through it. What other things did I write down? So I wanted to share, we talked about this, but one of the biggest takeaways that I got from Michelle Obama's book, Becoming, was she was talking about how when he as in former President Obama, was working, that she would tell him to come home because she wanted them to eat dinner together and then put their girls down for bed together. And he would tell her, okay, babe, I'll be there soon. I'm on my way. Well, to her, when she heard that, that meant, okay, he's about to leave right now. She said he wouldn't show up until like hours later, because for him, I'm on my way doesn't mean I'm leaving right now. That means I'm gonna be there eventually. Yeah. And so she said that she would get frustrated because she had kept her kids up, the dinner was cold or whatever. And so it was creating conflict between them because they're fighting about it. And she's like, you said you're on your way, you need to be back at this time. But he's like, okay, well, I'm working, so I can't, And so the compromise was, one, don't say you're on your way if you're actually not. And then the other thing that she said, which is kind of what we touched on, she said, once I got to a place where I stopped trying to fix him and I just focused on me. So I stopped trying to make him more punctual. I stopped trying to make him get home at a certain time. And I focused on me. And the focus on me was dinner's at 6, and then the girls go to bed at 8. If you're here, great. If you're not,
that's still going to happen.
Right. But I am going to keep this train moving because I like things to be punctual and orderly and be able to check off my list at the end of the night. And he's not necessarily like that. And so that was her, that is a boundary of saying, look, this is what I need. I need for the girls to eat at this time and to go to bed at this time. You can either get on board with this or not. And if he wants to be there to see them before they go to bed, he's going to get there. So, and I had somebody write me an email asking for input on something, and I asked permission to share it, obviously anonymously, but she was kind of expressing the same thing. She said that she stays at home and her husband works, and she has expressed to him how important it is that they eat dinner together, because she feels like, that's just, when I was a kid, my family always ate dinner together. That's something that I want us to do. So can you be home at 6? And she said that whenever he doesn't get home at 6, it's a problem. And then when she tries to talk to him about it, he tells her that she's just trying to be controlling, because sometimes he'll like go to happy hour or he'll work late or whatever. And she won't hear from him. And she's sitting there with 2 plates, food is getting cold. And so she's just like, well, I don't know what to do when this is creating issues for us. And so I shared, the same that I just talked about with Obama's, and like, this is what she did. And then also just said, maybe you could set aside one night a week. If this is, affecting his work and he's not okay with it, set out one night a week where y'all can eat dinner together. Maybe you don't get all 5 days. Maybe you just get, 1 or 2 days, or you just eat, and you eat, or you just continue to try to talk to him about it and give him the behind the scenes of like, I'm not just telling you this because I want to control you. I'm asking you this because we don't spend any time together, and this is important. It's a family tradition, but really sitting down and expressing the why. Like we talked about last week, I have a boundary, but there is a reason. I'm not just trying to tell you what to do. And make sure you're not, right? If you just don't want him to hang out with his coworkers, so you're using this as a guise to get him home, that's a problem. So you have to first know your own intentions are pure, and then express that to him, and then compromise. Like, okay. Maybe it's not every day, maybe it's twice a week, but I need you to give me something because this is important.
And I was just about to say, and me saying this, and you're saying I'm trying to control you, but I'm asking for this for me. Like, I want some of your time. I'm not trying to control anything that you're doing.
Right.
This is for me. This is the time of you. This is your time I want of yours, not that I'm
Right.
trying to
And
control.
I look, it's for us, right? Like we're a couple. You want to have a healthy, happy relationship, and spending quality time together is an important piece of that. And this specific thing is important to me.
Yeah.
So I should be able to express that to you when you reciprocate it. And like I said, you do have to compromise because, you know, if it's going to affect, say, how much money he's bringing home because he's not able to do overtime, for example, I don't know what he does, but you know, if it's going to affect something in his life, that may be why he's doubling down on the no, I ain't gonna be able to do that. Or at the very least, the other thing I told her was communicate. Just tell me that you're not going to be home today for dinner so that I'm not just sitting here with cold food, or I can push it back. If I say, okay, hey, what time do you think you'll be done? They don't have any kids. Okay, I'll be done at 8:30. Okay, well then I know I don't have to try to rush and cook for you because you're not going to be here at your normal time.
Yeah.
So I think though, you know, it's simple little fixes that you can do. Like I said, compromise a number of times and also just ask, well, can you at least just let me know? Instead of as soon as he gets in the house, I told you to be here at 6 and you're not here at 6 and this, because they're like, whoa, like I'm grown. I don't have a
Yeah.
curfew. I don't want to be here at 6. But that was just some of the tips that I gave her. But it's kind of right along the lines with you're trying to set a boundary and it's creating conflict in your relationship. Well, don't give up on the boundary because it's important to you, but just adjust it and really talk to him. First of all, like I said, make sure your own intentions are pure as to why you're setting this, and then really talk to him to say, hey, look, this is why this is important. So what can we do to make sure that we eat together at least a couple times a week?
Yep. And then, like you said, I think one of the important things is not to give up. After being with Gavino for 17 years, there's been some things that we've had to have multiple conversations, years, you know,
Yeah.
and it was a give and take a little bit, give and take a
Right.
little bit. So you just inched forward to finally got to a point where what we got to worked for both of us. You know, you got a little bit of what you wanted, I got a little bit of what I wanted, and we're happy right there. We don't have to inch no more. Let's move on to something
Right.
else. So sometimes it does take, like you said, that give and take, that give it, you know, it doesn't mean you're not resolving or you're not getting anywhere because I'm taking baby steps. That counts as well, as long as I am going forward, and I'm communicating. Because like I say, there's been plenty of things that we've gotten to a good place now, but it took years to
It
get.
takes a long time. And like you said, sometimes it takes more than one conversation. And sometimes it takes the conflict. Sometimes it
Yeah.
takes you expressing, I don't like this, and him being like, well, I'm okay with this. Sometimes it takes that you working through it in a healthy way to get to the other side where, and even then, there's no guarantee that it'll never come up. There are things that are just inherent in who we are. That it's gonna come up. As long as y'all are together, this thing is gonna come up, but it shouldn't present the same way, the same problem all the time. It
Yeah.
should get better, right? There should be a little inching forward, a little bit of baby steps, and y'all just keep coming back to the table. But don't give up, don't let it go, and don't stop saying it. If it's something that is really going to affect your own, you know, peace and mental health and things like that. I think an important part, and I had this conversation with the lady who emailed me, is learning how to communicate effectively. Go out, baby. Go see daddy. Thank you. But learning how to communicate effectively. And so it was another person, female that I coached, that I remember she was trying to talk about like the issues that she was having in her relationship. And she said, I tried to talk to him about it. And I said, oh, what did you say? What did you say to him? And she said, I asked him if he was happy. And I'm like, that's not expressing that you're unhappy. When you ask him if he's happy and then he says yes and proceeds to tell you all the reasons why he's happy, and then all the stuff that he's saying as to why he's happy is all the stuff that's making you unhappy, you have not expressed to him anything. You just asked a question. And so it was that, like, okay, let's figure out a way to communicate what it is that you're actually trying to say. Because asking someone, are you happy, is not the same thing as saying, I am unhappy and here's why.
Yeah.
So it's that it really is learning how to communicate or not being passive aggressive. You know how people say something jokingly, but they actually mean to say something different. That's one. So it's learning how to communicate effectively and to express what it is that you need in a way that the other person can understand.
Mhm.
So then the other one that I have, like you said this earlier, is just the importance of teaching people how to love you and knowing that people can't read your mind. None of these relationships are ready made, right? Like they just come and you just slide into it. It's like, oh man, this is great. Like all the work has been done. You have to do the work.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Go see that eagle. I'll come out in a second, okay? Sorry, we're like trying to fix the heater and dealing with everything under the sun. But yeah, so I think that it's important for people to know, like, you have to teach people how to love you. And if you're not saying anything, or like I said, if you're overcompensating for your own issues,
Yeah.
that's not gonna work.
Yeah.
So with that, we hope that you guys gain some valuable information. If you want our input on anything, you can always send an email to booking@clairemmotivators.com. And I'll respond to you there, and you can send in your issue and we'll comment it on this. Like I said, we do personal coaching, relationship coaching, health coaching, financial coaching, and career coaching. And so there's something there to help you out with everything that you are dealing with. And with that, we will see you all next week. Bye.
Bye.